Time for an episode of How'd You Do That? The CorelDRAW software that we use for the M-300 is sitting on the desktop. If we double left click, and open up the software, and go to the File pull down and select New. The laser engraver bed that we put the wood up into the corner is set for 12 by 24. Those are the maximum parameters that the M-300 will allow to engrave or cut. So you could put multiple pieces of wood in there, or a very large piece of wood, and do multiple engravings and cut it and so on and so forth. It's just truly amazing what you can do with a very small 1 foot by 2 foot area. Now, currently, there are no guidelines. The guidelines were the lines that were set up and dashed, and I was able to manipulate that image. Although it was a poem and it looked like text, it was still an image that I pulled off of the internet. If I click and hold either of these rulers, and I can drag out a guideline. Now when I drop that guideline by pulling my finger off the left mouse button, it highlights it in red. Anything that you select, whether it be a drawing or an image, text, a guideline, it will show more about that piece that you selected up in this area. So if I left click randomly, this will disappear. So if I left click anywhere in the white screen, it disappears. If I left click back on the line, it turns back to red, and I can adjust it accordingly. Now most people would go, well, if I put it to 0, I'm all set. Now I can drag my image in here. However, this is not 0. If you look in the X area here, it's actually negative 0.008 inches. If I drag it over here by 4, it's now positive 4.044 inches. If I need to move it directly to 0, I need to back it up 4.044. So I will simply left click in front of the 4 and type in a minus sign or a negative symbol and hit the enter key on the keyboard, and it moves it directly to 0. I'm going to left click in the blank screen, and I'm going to do the same thing for a line and bring it down the direction of Y. Left click and drag it down, drop it. Now if I need to move it, I'm going to type in a negative in front of this number and hit enter. And that will work accordingly, and you can drag as many guidelines out as possible, or over and out as possible. Or if you don't need that many, you can simply highlight them, hit delete on the keyboard. Left click delete, left click delete, left click delete, left click delete. If we were to put another piece in there, we need to show you exactly where we're going to stop in the lower corner here and leave all this space, negative space or void space that we're not going to use, and put our poem or anything else in that area. So let's set up these 2 lines and look at the engraver and how to set that up. When the laser engraver is on, lift the cover and press the Z button. On the left side of the engraver, you're going to find the height tool. That's for our manual adjustment. Simply pull it out and notice that that flat side is going to be positioned towards the belt arm back in storage.
We don't want it like that, or else it could interfere with our engraving as the wheels move forward and back. The height tool, there is a very small taper on the top. There's also one on the bottom. We're worried about the one on the top. So this very small little taper here. After we pull the height tool out of its storage area, we're going to set it down. We're going to make sure that we don't have it underneath the engraving box. I took the screws off just to show you the makeup and how this is going to work. The laser itself is going to come through that little lens. It's going to enter a hole through this side box here. It's going to hit an angled mirror. It's going to come through this hole, go through another hole in the side of the lens box, hit another angled mirror, and come down through a lens. We do not want to put the height tool underneath the lens. As we raise and lower the table, it will crack the lens, and it's a very expensive fix. I'm going to take this box off to show you the little mirror. So after it hits that mirror once again, it's going to come through the hole on the side here, hit another mirror, and go down through that lens and engrave our piece. Setting a proper focal point is very important with the laser engraver. If you've ever used a magnifying glass or a microscope, you need a proper focal point to get that correct view. The distance between the lens and your material should end up with the bottom of the height tool and the taper. So we want to put the height tool by the lens box, not underneath, as a reminder. And this is why it's job one. We don't want to take all of our X, Y measurements and then all of a sudden accidentally move it, especially when you're doing something ornate, like maybe even something on the lines of a cell phone, a camera, stapler, things like that, where it could bump and then it's very difficult to recover. So Z is always job one. We're going to come over here to the panel and we're going to hit the up or down table. Currently, it's flashing in its 10th position. The Z position itself, this number really is arbitrary. It doesn't matter. What we're going to do is use the manual height tool, because there could be a variation in the thickness in some cases, like a stapler or a cell phone. So we're just going to put it by, once again, not underneath, and we're going to hit the up table one time, and it jumps up 1/10 of an inch. Now, it's obviously nowhere close to being at height. It is not focus. It is not underneath. So I'm going to press and hold the up until I feel it's pretty close. I'm going to rotate. I'm going to rotate the height tool to the side of the engraver box. And we don't want to just grab and hold and try to adjust. We want to pinch the top lightly and slide it up and down. And you can see there is some play. If you grab here, it's too easy to sneak underneath the box or side to side, and same thing with the bottom. All your pressure, light pressure, should be right at the top so it can't sneak underneath the box. So we need to go up maybe a couple more tenths of an inch. So I'm going to hit the up table one time, 2 times, and check it again. Now we're up too high. So we're going to hit the down. And we still have a small little play in it. If we hit the up one more time, obviously it's going to be too high and we're not going to get a nice engrave. It's going to burn too wide and not give high quality. So what we want to do is jump to the 100th place. And the way to do that is hit the select button. Now you can see it's flashing in the 100th place, and now we can fine tune the laser engraver height. So I'm going to go up 1, 2, maybe 3 1/100ths of an inch and check it again. There is no play in the manual height tool. So I can remove the height tool. So now after I set this up, I'm going to put the height tool back. And that's how to set up a proper focal point with the manual height tool on the M-300 universal laser system. The next thing I want to do now that I have my Z set is home the Z out by pressing the Z button again. Now I need to bring up what's called a diode setting. This board that we engraved our school poem on, school promise poem, I cut it on the table saw at 8 by 10. Now, it may not be exactly 8 by 10. What we need to do is find the exact spot, and we're going to put it on our screen. So as the up-down table buttons kind of look like arrows, but remember those are for the up-down table. The arrows adjust the X and Y position. I'm going to select the XY button, and you'll see that a little red non-damaging laser light pops up. XY button is pressed, and here is the non-damaging, kind of like a laser pointer you would use in a presentation. That's our diode setting. Now that diode setting can go all the way up to 1/1000th of an inch for a position. This is why it's so nice if you ever wanted to engrave your cell phone, a camera, or other items for your classroom to identify that it came from there. All the Chromebooks and laptops in the school were laser engraved on this exact machine. All the identification codes and the school's name on the front. Now I'm going to move that diode over by pressing the left. You'll be able to see the position move. So now once I want an accurate measurement, I can go right up to the edge of the board, and there it is touching. Now it says 8 maybe on the ruler, but in reality it's 7.964. That's the number that I'm going to be entering into the software for a guideline. Now because that position, that line position in X is going to be positive, I'm going to drop that other guideline down, and I'm going to put it here in the corner, and then I'll have another position for my guideline. So in this manner, I am going to hold down the down arrow. Remove the diode. And you can let go, and obviously if you go too far, which I will purposely, you can just move back the up arrow. And that's where it lies, right on the corner. So now in the software I'll be able to click, hold, drag on the ruler and drag a guideline out. Click, hold, and drag a guideline out, and I'll enter these two numbers into the system. 7.964 and 9.947.
Now I can't, unfortunately, just enter a negative number in here for my Y and a positive for my X. What I need to do are take these guidelines back to 0 and keep them highlighted. So basically I'm going to keep one overlaid onto my 0. Then I'll be able to enter the numbers that are on the laser screen. So if I click hold with my left mouse button and I drag it and drop it, boom, right back on 0. Currently that position for X is 0. Now if I look back at my screen on the laser engraver, it says 7.964, and that's going to be a positive number. 7.964, and I hit the enter key on the keyboard. That diode that we set right on the edge of the board, right here, exactly right here. Again, this is why it's so important. To 1/1000th of an inch, and you're going to identify something that has extreme detail to it. Back of a math calculator. A lot of students do know that we have this capability and come down here and engrave their calculators. Once again, the Chromebooks also. To engrave that many, there's a template that they put in. All they do is change the number, start button. This one I'm going to drag back. Now this is very important for why. I'm going to drop this right here just to show you this is a negative number. For the math people out there, if we were looking at an XY coordinate or XY graph, this is your first quadrant. This is your second quadrant. This is your third quadrant, and this is your fourth quadrant. First quadrant, just as a refresher, you have positive x's and positive y's. Second quadrant, negative x's, positive y's. Third quadrant, negative x's, negative y's. Fourth quadrant, which we are in, every guideline that you pull out is going to be a positive x. For every guideline that you pull out from the top, it is going to be a negative position with y, which in our case, it doesn't show up on the screen on the laser engraver as a negative number. We just have to make sure that we understand that it's going to be negative on our software. Negative 9.947. Hit the enter on the keyboard. This is our exact spot of the diode for our board. Now we're ready to enter all of our graph, our image, anything that you want to text. So I'm going to show that right after we get back from setting up the laser.
Now that I have this entered into the system on the computer, I don't need that diode setting anymore. I don't need to take any more parameters on this board. If it was a triangle, maybe I could take a few different points. The clocks that we make every year in woods, they have to take a lot of points to surround their hexagon shape of their clock. Now, if I don't need that anymore, to get rid of it, all I do is simply turn it off by hitting the XY button, which that's how we turned it on. And now it is in fact off. To home it out back to its position, the laser box, so we can get it started, we need to hit the Z button twice. What it will do then is move over here, and the second time after I hit it, it's going to go over there. Z button once, Z button twice. And now we're ready to go to engrave on that board. Proper focal point and parameter on where we need to go. Close the cover.
Since we have a lot of people that are in the science department in our LBC, I thought I'd do something a little bit more science related for this. How'd you do that? I'm going to bring up this particular periodic table of elements that I found that seemed to work pretty good. If I left click on it, it's going to bring me to the website, and it's a free download. I'm going to hit my right mouse button on the image and hit copy image. I'm going to bring up my Corel Draw file that I still have set for the parameters, and right mouse and left click on paste. Now if you recall, if I left click out on the blank screen, I have up here just about the setup of the screen. If I left click on one of my guidelines, remember I have everything up here that relates to that particular guideline. Now if I left click in the blank screen again, all that disappears. If I left click on my image, everything up here about the image comes into play. From the size to the rotation to being able to trace it and edit it, because this is a drawing and editing software, I'm going to rotate. Now I could just rotate the board and make it easier on myself, but I'm going to hit rotate and I'm going to hit 90 degrees, and then I'm going to hit the enter key on the keyboard. And obviously this is not going to fit, so I'm going to use the corner to corner proportionate dragging method to get right up to my guideline and drop it. I can scoot it around until I feel it's fairly positioned in within the guideline parameters. If it's off a little bit, that's okay. We just want to make sure it's not off outside of the engraving area. And there we are. Now if I hit File and Print, because if you haven't figured it out by now, that's all our laser is a glorified printer. It doesn't have ink in it, and it has a CO2 cartridge that transfers everything into a concentrated laser. So if I hit Print, and my name is M-300 copy 1, and I hit the properties, and I want to make sure it is in fact wood settings. These colors, it doesn't do colors, but it will recognize colors at different power and speed pulses per inch settings. Typically, we don't go over 3, but you could. So currently, my item is in fact in black, and that's the only color that I have to worry about. If I wanted to change the power and speed settings, which I don't need to, I could left click on the actual color or power or speed anywhere in this field, or red or whatever. So the black settings are right here: power 100, speed of 40, and pulses per inch 500. If it was set to 80 or 10 and it's up here and you need it to be 140 and 500, we simply change it 140 and pulses per inch 500. And then the big set button, we have to make sure we select. Then hit OK and apply and print. I will show you a big chart that we have posted in our little room to make sure we have the proper settings for specific material.